Hi everyone. Where we're going to get started today with this short tutorial is just going over the different intelligence theories. So one of the first theories that we'll talk about is this idea of a general intelligence. We're tapping into that question of, is the fact that we have one IQ score doesn't mean that we have one general intelligence ability. So one of the theories that is most commonly discussed in terms of general intelligence is the Spearman two-factor theory. In the very early 1900s, it was a theory that proposed that we have something called G, the general mental ability. And that G represents what all different kinds of mental ability tests, or what all different kinds of intelligence tests have in common. And that even though there may be many different kinds of specific tests, as indicated here by S1, S2, S3, and S4, these represent the specific ability to do a specific test. However, you can see that these are all overlapping, and that overlap is considered your general mental ability, your G. Okay, so even though specific tests may tap into slightly different things, that there is still some underlying general mental ability that is thought to be much more important than S. Moving into another way of depicting general intelligence is to delineate between fluid and crystallized intelligence. You can see this graphic here. This graphic represents performance on a given kind of intelligence here along this graphic, and this is chronological age. That's what CA is. So it's showing you a developmental trajectory. So what's important here is to understand that some people propose that general intelligence is comprised of subcomponents, fluid intelligence as well as crystallized intelligence. So let's start with crystallized. It's indicated here by this dark black line, crystallized, also known as pragmatics. This is the kind of intelligence that is all about accumulated factual knowledge, our library of information. Okay, so we continue to store new information, gain wisdom, gain cultural knowledge, so that you will see that as you get older, you're gaining more knowledge, you're learning more things in school, in your everyday life, just experiencing more life and experiencing more intellectual stimulation. And you'll see that this stays, it rises up until after about college, according to this depiction, and it will kind of hit a plateau, that you'll learn a little bit more, but you're really kind of hitting a certain amount of information that you get, and it increases until it gets to the amount of information that you learn for your lifetime. Okay, and this is thought to be consistent until pretty much death, unless you are experiencing some severe form of dementia. So again, crystallized intelligence is really your accumulated knowledge, vocabulary, more factual knowledge. Let's contrast this to fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence is indicated by this dotted line here. Fluid intelligence is our ability to mentally manipulate information, to really think about it and to really use our information. So this is problem solving, our memory, our ability to kind of work around novel situations. And according to this graphical depiction here, we increase in our abilities to problem solve, to mentally manipulate information, and then we see that there is a decline, which is in contrast to crystallized intelligence. This decline, which occurs after college apparently, is that it's about basic cognitive operations. So speed of processing, speeds of using information, perceiving relationships between different objects and different kinds of classifications. This is the mechanics of intelligence. And as we get older, it's thought that our brain gets a little bit slower in this kind of problem solving, in this fluid intelligence. Not that we lose it completely, but that we're not as efficient as when we were much younger. Okay. We'll learn more actually about crystallized and fluid intelligence when we move into the developmental section of the course. For now, the basic bottom line is to understand the differences between the two, and that crystallized remains there until old age, whereas fluid, we have a decline in that ability. So, we move into this concept of multiple intelligences. Your classmates kind of brought this up during class today, and Sternberg is really one of the theories that I want to emphasize. There's another one, there's the Gardner's theory, where 8 types of intelligences. So that 8 types of intelligences, when it was proposed, was really novel because it recognized that individuals could be average or below average in some domains, but yet be very extraordinary in other domains. The one I'm going to focus on is Sternberg's triarchic theory. Sternberg's triarchic theory broke down intelligence into 3 main types of intelligence. 1, analytic. Analytic intelligence is thought to be just our ability to even acquire and store knowledge, to select the best strategies to learn information, and to use that to make decisions and solve problems. This form of giftedness, if you can call it that, or this form of intelligence, is the one that's tested most often in school. These are people who may do really well in classes, get really good grades, and are seen as smart. But one of the caveats with this is that they're really good at following these ways of thinking, following what the instructor is asking them to do, but they're not necessarily good at solving novel problems or creating unique ideas or unique examples. Okay, so these are people who are really good at like kind of storing knowledge, getting that knowledge, selecting strategies, but not necessarily on that more novel problem-solving aspect. And we move into the second one, and this is the creative type of intelligence. And the creative type of intelligence taps into that ability to solve novel problems that have never been seen before. They have insight and that they develop very creative ways of working around problems. They may not necessarily perform very well in school, but they have very, very good intuition, is what people say, and really good at thinking about things outside of the box to be very flexible in their thinking. And then we move into practical. So practical can be dubbed street smarts in some ways, that it is really our ability to get along with individuals, to get out of trouble if we need to, knowing how to navigate your everyday life, not necessarily just schoolwork or anything like that. And this involves your ability to apply your skills in other settings. You may not get the best test scores or you may not be that creative, but you know what kinds of things that people in the real world want, how to impress people at job interviews, and to think more on that broad social level as well. Okay, so these 3 different types of intelligences are important. Anytime we talk about the notion of multiple intelligence, it's important because it brings into that idea that people can be average in some ways, but very intelligent, very gifted in other ways. And that kind of brings us into this idea of emotional intelligence. Some of us may have read textbook information about this, or we hear people talk about Oprah having a high level of emotional intelligence. And there are people who very much argue that emotional intelligence is going to be a very, very strong predictor of success in life. And your emotional intelligence is your ability to perceive emotions, use emotions to your advantage, and to use them accurately and adaptively. So there is thought to be this global EI ability, emotional intelligence, which you see here in this depiction. And what is part of that is your ability to perceive emotions. Can you look at other people and sort of figure out what's going on? How are they feeling? Even if you're saying one thing, are they expressing boredom? Are they expressing sadness? Are they preoccupied? Okay, and it's also related to not just human beings, but can you really perceive emotions in artwork or stories or objects in the world? Another thing is using emotions to enhance thinking. Now, what does that mean? It's facilitating your thought process in some ways. Can we use the emotion we feel or perceive in other individuals to communicate our feelings, to communicate a sense of bonding, to communicate a sense of, using emotion to understand how another individual is thinking, or using your emotions to think about how you might be perceiving something or think about a certain problem. Okay, so now we move into understanding how emotions work. That's really, how do you use emotions to kind of get through relationships, to get through transitions from moving into one relationship to the next, or if you have an argument with a best friend, can you understand how emotions are at play here? How, because they're upset, they might interpret something you say in a different way, or because you're upset, that you might be biased in your perception of what's going on. So really understanding how emotions are at play in a given context. And last, managing emotional states. This is your ability to be open with your feelings, but also, regulate yourself. If you are very, very upset, can you sort of control yourself at the moment or put yourself in a position in which you can delay the conversation perhaps until you are much more able to regulate yourself? So it's this self-regulation strategies. So are you kind of just huffing and puffing all the time, or are you really able to keep a composure and keep calm and collected even through tough emotional scenarios? So as you can sort of tell, these are all really tapping into individuals who are really socially adept, being able to perceive emotions in others as well as yourself, and to use that to enhance your interaction with the world or to enhance your relationships with other people in the world. There is some criticism that the fact that emotional intelligence may not necessarily be intelligence, but that it is social skills, a skill set. That's really a debate of semantics about how we term things, how do we define intelligence. But the whole body of research on things like social skills, emotional intelligence, they absolutely point in the direction of support that those who have higher social skills or higher levels of emotional intelligence, as we have defined it by research, do succeed in life and do very well in everyday activities as well as navigating the workplace. So those are basically the main theories I want you to focus on. I just want you to be able to identify what the basic tenets are for each kind of theory of intelligence. There is no end-all and be-all definitive word about what intelligence is or what's the best way to conceptualize it. There's a lot of debate about that. But if you can understand these different perspectives, then you're okay for the next exam. As always, if you have questions, feel free to discuss them on the forums, or you can send me an email, or you can send your TA an email. All right, so thanks, and I hope you have a good time studying.